of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in the Middle East. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with the Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Syrian Arab Republic, and Turkey to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with the Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Mr. Adedeji Ebo, Director and Deputy to the High Representative of the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I wish to draw the attention of the Council members to document S/2024/632, a letter dated 27 August 2024 from the Secretary General addressed to the President of the Security Council. I now give the floor to Mr. Adedeji Ebo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, I thank Council members for the opportunity to brief you once again on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2118 of 2013 on the elimination of the chemical weapons program of the Syrian Arab Republic. I am providing this briefing on behalf of the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, who is currently away from office. Since the last consideration of this matter by the Council, and consistent with established practice, the Office for Disarmament Affairs has been in regular contact with its counterparts in the OPCW Technical Secretariat on activities related to Resolution 2118. Mr. President, since the Council's previous meeting on this matter, the OPCW Declaration Assessment Team, or DAT, has continued its efforts to clarify all outstanding issues regarding the initial declaration and subsequent declarations submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic. As was reported at the last briefing to the Council on this matter, the 27th round of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian National Authority was undertaken in Damascus in May 2024. During and subsequent to this round of consultations, the DAT requested explanations from the Syrian National Authority regarding the results of analysis of samples collected by the DAT between September 2020 and April 2023 at 2 formally declared chemical weapons related sites. These results indicated potentially undeclared activities related to several chemical warfare agents, including the full production cycle from research and development to production, testing, and storage for 2 of those agents. Although the Syrian Arab Republic provided some additional information on these results, the OPCW Technical Secretariat assessed this information as insufficient. This resulted in the opening of 2 new outstanding issues in July 2024, raising the total number of issues from 24 to 26, of which 7 have been resolved and 19 remain unresolved. This is an extremely worrying development. Mr. President, I have been further informed that the Syrian National Authority did not accept the OPCW Technical Secretariat proposals for 2 possible time periods for the 28th round of consultations. As a result, on 14 August 2024, the OPCW Technical Secretariat informed the Syrian Arab Republic of its intention to deploy a reduced team to the Syrian Arab Republic to conduct the 28th round of consultations in mid-September 2024. The planned activities were also updated accordingly, as the DAT will not be in a position to conduct any field visits during the proposed deployment. Through a note verbal dated 19 August 2024, the Syrian Arab Republic informed the OPCW Technical Secretariat that it had no objection to receiving the DAT in mid-September 2024. However, I understand that negotiation of the relevant dates is still ongoing. Mr. President, I have been informed that the delayed deployment of the DAT will have an operational impact on the planned schedule for inspections of the Barza and Jamraya facilities of the Scientific Studies and Research Center, or SSRC. As of date of this month's report, the Technical Secretariat has not received any new information which may resolve the issues related to the presence of a Schedule II chemical in the sample collected during the November 2018 inspection, and to the origin and usage of a chemical of dual use nature observed by the inspection team during the September 2022 inspection at the SSRC Barza facilities. The OPCW Technical Secretariat will further engage on these issues with the Syrian National Authority during the next round of SSRC inspections. As reported previously, the OPCW Technical Secretariat has also requested information regarding the unauthorized movement of the 2 cylinders related to the chemical weapon incident that took place in Duma on 7 April 2018, which were allegedly destroyed in an attack on a chemical weapons production facility. I have been informed that as of the date of this report, the Technical Secretariat has not received a response to this request. Mr. President, the OPCW Technical Secretariat remains fully committed to implementing its mandate aimed at verifying the fulfillment of the Syrian Arab Republic's declaration obligations under the Convention, decisions by the OPCW policy-making organs, and Security Council resolutions. However, as has been previously emphasized, full cooperation by the Syrian Arab Republic with the OPCW Technical Secretariat is essential to closing all outstanding issues. Considering the identified gaps, inconsistencies, and discrepancies that remain unresolved, at this time, the OPCW Technical Secretariat assesses that the declaration submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic still cannot be considered accurate and complete in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention. I call upon the Syrian Arab Republic to cooperate with the OPCW Technical Secretariat and respond with urgency to all of the Technical Secretariat's requests. Mr. President, I have been advised that the OPCW Fact-Finding Mission, or FFM, continues to study all available information related to allegations of the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian Arab Republic and will issue further reports in due course. The Investigation and Identification Team, or IIT, also continues its investigations into incidents in which the fact-finding mission has determined that chemical weapons were used or likely used in the Syrian Arab Republic and will issue further reports in due course. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, the United Nations will continue to support all efforts to uphold the norm against chemical weapons and to relegate these dreadful weapons to history. As the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs has emphasized on many occasions, any use of chemical weapons is unacceptable. I also echo the Secretary General's call to end impunity for all those who dare to use such weapons, especially against civilians. I urge the members of this council to unite on this issue and show leadership in demonstrating that impunity in the use of chemical weapons will not be tolerated. The UN Office for Disarmament Affairs stands ready to provide whatever support and assistance it can. I thank you very much for your attention.
I thank Mr. Ebo for his briefing. I now give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to thank the Deputy to the High Representative on Disarmament, Mr. Adeji Eba, for his briefing. The 131st monthly report of the OPCW Technical Secretariat Progress in Eliminating the Syrian Chemical Program is yet another clear example of bias of that structure. Once again, we have to reiterate that the contents of the General Director's report of this organization is not balanced, and it puts forward one-sided accusations against the Syrians with one aim to create the impression that the dialogue between the OPCW and the Syrian Arab Republic is being blocked just because of the lack of cooperation and lack of goodwill by the Syrians. So once again, a problem has been blown out of all proportion by the Technical Secretariat, and it has nothing to do with the issues in the reporting period, namely the issuance of a visa to one staff member of the DAT. Furthermore, there's deliberate silence regarding the fact that the situation was resolved solely thanks to the efforts and the goodwill of Damascus. It is absolutely absurd and unprofessional when we see the paragraphs regarding the plans to conduct the 28th round of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian authorities. The Syrian Arab Republic leadership welcomed its organization and was fully prepared to continue discussion to agree on necessary modalities, including dates that would suit both sides. In this regard, we absolutely don't understand the aim of this purely technical detail and why there are three whole paragraphs on it in the report. It would seem the only aim is to present Syria in a poor light. But nobody wanted to mention the fact that despite the deprivations of Damascus in terms of their rights and privileges under the CWC, it continues in good faith to cooperate with the OPCW and comply with its obligations under the convention. Syria is providing all necessary assistance to inspections conducted by representatives of the organization. We'd like to point out to those who don't want to notice that over the past 10 years, 150 technical meetings were conducted. There were 45 visits to facilities, 180 samples were tested, and 350 documents were provided from Damascus. I think that our Syrian colleagues today will tell you about the work they've conducted so that the Council can have a more objective impression of what is going on. The Director General's reports still don't enable us to do that. It is important not to forget that cooperation between the DAT is based on voluntary bilateral obligations that Syria has taken upon itself. The mandate of the DAT does not involve any investigation. Its aim is just to assist the Syrians in preparing their initial declarations. In this regard, we are surprised that the report talks regarding the DAT, the two technical issues regarding traces of chemical weapons, or chemical agents rather. And but this really would say almost that they've found stockpiles of chemical weapons. That's what one would think. We believe that it is not justified when we see the technical secretariat's decision regarding these issues. It is clear that one shouldn't rush into dealing with these unresolved issues, and rather additional explanations should have been sought from Damascus. Our experts are convinced that most of the unresolved issues theoretically can be closed down. There's a need to consider the difficulties in getting sufficient amounts of material or documentary evidence for objective reasons. For example, the hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic and the time frame for the suspicious activity, etc., etc. But there's nothing surprising here, because repeatedly within this chamber we've asked for explanations. Why is there a difference in the approach regarding Syria and other countries who've encountered similar problems? But there has not been so much criticism leveled against any other places such as Damascus. We've asked for specific examples, but we didn't get any response whatsoever. We regret the fact that the report did not reflect the fact that this year, thanks to cooperation between Damascus and the DAT, 3 unresolved issues were concluded. We welcome the progress made in eliminating Syrian chemical weapons and eliminating their production facilities and storage facilities, and the cooperation between the national authority and the DAT, and the agreement to have a trilateral agreement between Syria, the OPCW, and the IIT. But if we are to deny any successes in this area, it means we are not talking about the truth. So, looking at how Western members in the Council present this, it is clear that any progress on the Syrian chemical issue seems to stick in their throat, and they will do everything they possibly can to ignore it. In this regard, I would like to remind colleagues that saying that apparently the chemical weapons stores have been detected that this has not been presented to the Security Council or the OPCW. They've not provided any information about the production or maintenance of any chemical weapons that these countries talked about in April 2018. And so they acted in a gross violation of the UN and in gross violation of Resolution 2118. This really just serves one aim: to mislead the Council and to promote the policies of the collective West regarding the Syrian chemical weapons issue. So what we see is an overwhelming politicization of the OPCW. Ultimately, this is obviously going to damage the weapons ban regime as a whole, and it undermines the ability of our organization to respond to real challenges that are facing the international community in the area of chemical disarmament and non-proliferation of chemical weapons. We would urge our Western colleagues to have a good hard think. Really, is their pettiness regarding the Syrian government worth so many implications for international cooperation in this area? Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for their statement. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Director Abo, for your briefing. This month marks 11 years since the adoption of Resolution 2118, which this Council adopted unanimously in response to horrific chemical weapons attacks in Syria. Today, the United States wishes to review where we stand on the critical pillars of that resolution. Colleagues, that resolution required the full implementation of the OPCW Executive Council's decision necessitating the expeditious destruction of Syria's chemical weapons program under stringent verification. It stated, the Syrian Arab Republic shall not use, develop, produce, acquire, stockpile, retain, or transfer chemical weapons, and shall cooperate fully with the UN and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, including by giving UN and OPCW personnel immediate and unfettered access to inspect any and all sites. Resolution 2118 said those individuals responsible for the use of chemical weapons in Syria must be held accountable. By every one of these measures, the Syrian Arab Republic has not only failed to implement these provisions, but has shown utter contempt for the will of this Council and for the families of the men, women, and children who suffered and died due to such attacks. After 11 years of this behavior, we can all see that this regime has no shame whatsoever. Multiple international investigations have all come to the same conclusion, that the Assad regime repeatedly used chemical weapons against Syrian citizens. Despite this conclusive evidence, the Syrian Arab Republic refuses to comply with the Chemical Weapons Convention by fully and verifiably accounting for its chemical weapons program and arsenal. Even more disturbing is the fact that this regime has yet to take responsibility for the atrocities it has committed against its own citizens. Director Ebo, we appreciate the OPCW's continuing efforts to verify the accuracy of Syria's declarations and to press the regime to address the many remaining gaps and inconsistencies. We also laud the professionalism, dedication, impartiality, and determination of the Syria special missions. We know that theirs is a daunting task, but we must do all we can to ensure that Syrians never again have to endure such a catastrophe. There must be no impunity for the use of chemical weapons anywhere, by anyone, under any circumstances. The United States notes that the OPCW's Technical Secretariat continues to discover alarming evidence of Syria's chemical weapons capabilities, the latest of which dates to April 2023. This has resulted in the organization opening 2 new outstanding issues regarding the accuracy and completeness of Syria's declaration. This takes the long list of gaps and discrepancies with Syria's initial declaration to 19, including many that have been persisting since 2014. In response to Syria's continued noncompliance, the OPCW Conference of States Parties adopted the forward-looking decision invoking Article 12, Paragraph 3 of the Chemical Weapons Convention, recommending that states parties take a number of collective measures, including to prevent the transfer to Syria of certain dual-use chemicals and equipment. This decision also aims to prevent the same dual-use chemicals and equipment from falling into the hands of non-state actors, including terrorist groups. The United States urges all member states to implement these measures without delay. The United States continues working with partners across the world to bring an end to the regime's chemical weapons program and promote accountability for the use of chemical weapons in Syria and elsewhere. After 11 years, the Syrian regime is banking on all of us forgetting their atrocities. The United States refuses to do so. We will not forget, we will not relent, and we implore every nation seated at this table to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Mr. President, I have the honor to deliver this joint statement on behalf of the A3+, namely Guyana, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, and my own country, Algeria. We thank Mr. Adidiji Ibo, Deputy of the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, for the briefing. We welcome the participation of the representatives of the Syrian Arab Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Turkey. Mr. President, the A3+ reiterate its firm belief that the use of chemical weapons anywhere, by anyone, and under any circumstances must be condemned. We remain committed to ensuring accountability for such actions under international law. We carefully reviewed the contents of the 131 monthly report of the OPCW, covering the period from 24 July to 23 August this year. We also acknowledge the submission of the 129 monthly report dated 14 of August on progress achieved by the Syrian Arab Republic on the destruction of its chemical weapons. Regarding the implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention, The A3 Plus notes with satisfaction that in terms of the overall figure of destruction, 100% of declared chemical weapons had been destroyed as of the 7th of July, 2023. In this regard, we welcome the completion of the destruction of chemical weapon stockpiles, including those declared by the Syrian Arab Republic. While recalling the decision of the Executive Council with respect to the elimination and destruction of Syrian chemical weapons and the destruction of Syrian chemical weapons production facilities, the A3 Plus commends the substantive efforts made and the significant progress achieved in this regard. We also welcome the OPCW Director General's report on the completion of the destruction of all chemical weapons and chemical weapons production facilities declared by the Syrian Arab Republic. The A3 Plus acknowledge the ongoing collaboration between the Syrian Arab Republic and the Technical Secretariat, particularly the 27th round of consultation between the Declaration Assessment Team and the Syrian National Authority in Damascus. And we look forward to the report on this consultation. And we anticipate further positive developments. We have taken note that the Syrian National Authority has agreed to hold the 28th round of consultation with the Declaration Assessment Team after September the 10th. And the A3 Plus looks forward to the conduct of this visit and to the achievement of fruitful result in order to close permanently this file. The A3 Plus encourage the Secretariat to continue its effort to clarify all outstanding issues regarding the initial and subsequent declarations submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention. We also encourage the Syrian Arab Republic to continue its cooperation to address the outstanding issues in accordance with the provision of the Chemical Weapons Convention. The A3 Plus believes that maintaining open channels of communication and fostering a spirit of collaboration is crucial for the successful resolution of outstanding matters. In this respect, we encourage Syria's continuing engagement with the OPCW. The A3 Plus welcomes the extension of the tripartite agreement between the OPCW, UNOPS, and the Syrian Arab Republic until 31st December 2024. We believe this agreement plays a vital role in facilitating the Secretariat's mandated activities in the Syrian Arab Republic. we remain committed to the imperative against the use of chemical weapons and to all efforts aimed at prohibiting their development, production, acquisition, stockpiling, retention, transfer, or use. The A3+ reaffirms its continuing support for Resolution 2118 and underscores the importance of its full implementation. The A3+ looks forward to the continuation of the existing successful cooperation between the OPCW and the Syrian Arab Republic on all issues in order to close this file permanently. We believe that through sustained dialogue and mutual understanding, further progress can be achieved in addressing the remaining issues. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Switzerland.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie.
Mr. President, I would like to thank Mr. Ibo for his presentation. 11 years ago, this Council unanimously adopted Resolution 2118, a few weeks after the use of chemical weapons in the suburbs of Damascus. On the 21st of August 2013, the inhabitants of Ghouta, including many children, were the victims of one of the most devastating chemical attacks on civilians since the Second World War. Syria subsequently acceded to the Convention on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, and yet, over the last 11 years, the obligations arising from this convention and Resolution 2118 have been violated on at least 25 occasions in chemical attacks documented by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW. Over the course of 11 years, significant work has been carried out by the OPCW to clarify all the issues surrounding the Syrian chemical weapons program. Syria's initial declaration had to be amended 20 times. At the same time, the OPCW raised and reported a total of 26 issues, 19 of which are still outstanding. The fact that 2 of these points were only raised this year is worrying. Switzerland therefore calls on Syria to continue cooperating with the OPCW and all its missions fully and in good faith. In addition, we call on Syria to provide verifiable and scientifically plausible explanations that will clarify all unresolved issues. To this end, the 28th round of consultations between the Declarations Assessment Team, the DAT, and Syria is necessary. In the meantime, we are counting on the forthcoming visit of a reduced DAT team in mid-September and look forward to receiving its report. Switzerland reiterates here its full confidence in the OPCW and our support for all its missions, whose integrity and professionalism are beyond doubt. Mr. President, for 11 years, the regular meetings of this Council have served to remind us of a crucial issue: preventing the production, stockpiling, proliferation, and use of chemical weapons in Syria, and ensuring their destruction. This regularity also confirms the Council's universal commitment to the fight against impunity, on which our collective security depends. Those who manufacture, possess, and even use such weapons must not go unpunished. Indeed, there will be no peace in Syria unless justice is rendered for the victims of violations of international law. For this reason, Switzerland will continue to support any international organization or initiative whose work consists of documenting such crimes under international law and preventing them from being perpetrated by parties to conflicts, including states and non-state armed groups. In this spirit, we welcome the formal cooperation between the OPCW and the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism for Syria. This cooperation is an important step towards the implementation of Council Resolution 2118 and respect for relevant international law, to which Switzerland is deeply attached and to which it will continue to commit itself in this forum as elsewhere. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Switzerland for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Mr. Ebo for his informative briefing and commend OPCW for its impartial efforts in ensuring the full implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention, CWC. I also welcome the representative of Syria, Iran, and Turkey. Today's briefing has once again demonstrated why the Council should regularly remain seized of this matter. While Syria joined the convention more than a decade ago, it remains impossible to fully verify the declarations Syria has made, leaving substantial quantities of chemical weapons unaccounted for. In this regard, I would like to highlight the following points. First, the Republic of Korea expresses serious concern over the opening of a new outstanding issues regarding Syria's compliance with CWC and implementation of Resolution 2118. We note with apprehension on recent findings by the OPCW, which suggest undeclared activities related to several chemical warfare agents, including their full production cycle. This is a disappointing development, especially considering the progress made earlier this year when some outstanding issues were resolved. While the recent Declaration Assessment Team report acknowledges some efforts by the Syrian government, this still falls short of what is needed to fully verify its explanations. As such, we urge Syria to provide comprehensive information to the OPCW Secretariat to resolve all remaining issues. Second, we urge the Syrian Arab Republic to demonstrate greater cooperation with OPCW. We take note of the recent extension of the tripartite agreement among Syria, the OPCW, and the United Nations Office for Project Services until the end of this year, which we see as a positive and incremental step that could facilitate OPCW's mandated activities. However, we remain greatly concerned by Syrians' refusal to issue entry visa to all DAT members last year, limiting its activities. Such actions undermine OPCW's efforts in resolving outstanding issues. We strongly encourage Syria to grant full access to all relevant OPCW teams, including DAT and the Investigation and Identification Team, IIT, and to support their efforts without delay. Third, we reiterate our call for holding those responsible for the use of chemical weapons accountable. 11 years after the horrid chemical weapons attack in Ghouta in August of 2013, our responsibility to ensure accountability for the loss of more than 8,000 lives remains. The repeated use of chemical weapons in 2017 and 2018 also serves as a stark reminder of the importance of combating impunity to deter the recurrence of such such actions. We express our deepest sympathy for the victims of chemical weapons use and emphasize that those crimes cannot remain unpunished. In this regard, we strongly support the work of the IIT, which identifies the origin of chemical weapons and the perpetrators, and we oppose any attempt to undermine its legitimacy and value. Mr. President, adherence to the obligation under the Convention is critical in the current Syrian context, where the resurgence of Daesh and escalating regional tensions significantly heightens the risk of chemical materials falling into the wrong hands. In this regard, the Republic of Korea urges all parties to fully comply with their obligations under the Convention and the relevant Security Council resolutions. I thank you.
Thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of China.
Thank you, President. I thank Deputy to the High Representative for this Government Affairs able for his briefing on chemical weapon-related issues. China's position is consistent. We firmly oppose the use of chemical weapons by anyone under any circumstance for any purpose. We hope to see a world free from chemical weapons at an early date. China calls for dialogue and negotiation to resolve the outstanding issues related to the initial declaration of chemical weapons in Syria. We encourage the OPCW Technical Secretariat and the Syrian government to continue to head toward the same direction on a basis of mutual respect and cooperation on an equal footing, and communicate on conducting the 28th round of technical consultations so as to resolve the outstanding issues. The OPCW's investigation of and accountability for any alleged use of chemical weapons should be conducted in strict accordance with the CWC and the relevant verification annex to ensure compliance with the established procedure, reliability of evidence, and credibility of its conclusions. At the same time, we hope that all parties jointly uphold the technical nature of the OPCW and refrain from block, confrontation, political antagonism. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank Mr. Ebo, Deputy to the High Representative, for his briefing. I would like to begin by reiterating Japan's principles on the Syria chemical weapon file. Any use of chemical weapons anywhere at any time by anyone under any circumstances is unacceptable, and those responsible for their use must be held accountable. It is truly regrettable that we have not witnessed tangible progress on this file since our last meeting. The recent monthly report by the OPCW Director General again highlighted concerns regarding Syria's conduct. According to the report, Syria has not provided adequate explanations for the traces of undeclared chemical warfare agents. This lack of transparency suggests the possibility of undeclared full-scale development and production of chemical weapons at 2 formally declared sites related to chemical weapons. The detailed report by the Declaration Assessment Team of the OPCW, released on the 4th of July this year, pointed out additional outstanding issues. First, undeclared activities involving nitrogen mustards. Second, undeclared activities involving Soman. Third, the presence of an indicator of nerve agents, EA1699, at a chemical weapons production facility. We are gravely concerned about continuing discrepancies, gaps, and inconsistencies in Syria's initial and subsequent declarations, as once again confirmed by the latest Director General's report. We continue to urge Syria to engage in good faith with the OPCW and provide all requested information to solve the outstanding issues under the Chemical Weapons Convention and Security Council Resolution 2118. It would undermine the objective and purpose of the OPCW if Syria continues to possess chemical weapons and fails to destroy undeclared stockpiles and production facilities. Mr. President, Japan commends the professional, impartial, and independent work conducted by the OPCW. We strongly oppose any attempts to undermine their authority and invaluable work. Japan believes that preventing the recurrence of the use of chemical weapons in Syria must continue to be the Security Council's priority. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Japan for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Director Ebo for his briefing today. As so many have already noted in this room, it is 11 years this month since Syria ratified the Chemical Weapons Convention, and since this Council unanimously agreed Resolution 2118, calling on Syria to immediately cease its production, storage, and use of chemical weapons. In 2013, Bashar Assad's forces used sarin against the people of Ghouta, killing over 1,400 people. And in 2018, a chemical weapon attack in Douma killed 43 men, women, and children, and affected dozens more. Yet the Syria chemical weapon issue has still not been confined to history. The Syrian authorities have failed to account for thousands of munitions and hundreds of tons of chemical agent, despite the diligent efforts of the OPCW and its declaration assessment team. We have had 150 technical meetings, yet outstanding issues still remain with Syria's declaration. 19 outstanding issues remain unresolved regarding the Syrian declaration to the Chemical Weapons Convention, and 2 were added in July 2024, opened, set out in the OPCW's Director General's report to the Council, because Syria's failure to sufficiently explain traces of undeclared chemical warfare agents or their indicators and samples previously collected by the Declaration Assessments team. This suggests potentially undeclared full-scale development and production of chemical weapons at 2 formally declared chemical weapons sites. This is deeply concerning. Colleagues, Syria's ongoing non-compliance with the Chemical Weapons Convention has grave implications for both regional and international security. Since Bashar Assad first used chemical weapons against Syrian civilians in 2013, chemical weapons have been used again and again in Iraq, Malaysia, in my own country, the UK, and now in Ukraine. All of us have a responsibility to hold up the global taboo against the use of chemical weapons. Chemical weapon use cannot become normalized. I urge Syria to comply with the OPCW and its declaration assessment team. And I urge all members of this council to make clear their opposition to the use of chemical weapons anywhere and to support the efforts of the OPCW. The UK applauds the continued diligent efforts by the OPCW under DG Ambassador Fernando Arias' leadership. We will continue to work tirelessly to support the OPCW and uphold the Chemical Weapons Convention. and to one day finally achieve the total elimination of chemical weapons. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Malta.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I also thank Mr. Ebo for his informative briefing. Malta supports the regular holding of these meetings. Not only are they mandated by Resolution 2118, but the recent OPCW reports clearly show the need to keep international attention on this file. In July, the Secretariat assessed that the information provided by Syria regarding the chemical warfare agents previously detected by the Declaration Assessment Team was insufficient. This resulted in the opening of 2 new outstanding issues in its initial declaration, which were also reported to the Executive Council. The samples collected by the DAT suggested, and I quote, potentially undeclared full-scale development of production of chemical weapons, end quote. This is unacceptable. The Syrian Arab Republic has an obligation, in line with the Chemical Weapons Convention and Resolution 2118, not to produce, acquire, stockpile, or retain chemical weapons. Violations of these provisions must be unequivocally condemned. Furthermore, in its most recent report, the OPCW noted its intention to deploy the DAT to conduct the 28th round of consultations with Syrian authorities. Regrettably, Syria did not accept the time periods proposed by the Secretariat. Therefore, due to the time limitations and its reporting obligations, the Secretariat will only deploy a reduced team, which will not be able to conduct any field visits. Unfortunately, the delayed deployment of the DAT will also have an operational impact on the schedule of the 2024 round of inspections of the Barza and Jamara facilities of the Scientific Studies and Research Center by the Secretariat. We call on Syria to fully comply with its obligations, including full cooperation with the OPCW Technical Secretariat. Mr. President, the lack of progress on this file is deplorable, and Syria bears full responsibility for it. Over 10 years after its accession to the Convention and the passing of Resolution 2118, its initial declaration still cannot be considered accurate and complete. Once again, we urge the Syrian Arab Republic to make decisive progress towards the full elimination of its chemical weapons program. The use of chemical weapons is completely contrary to the legal standards of the international community and can never be justified. Malta condemns their use anywhere, by anyone, under any circumstances. As we have just heard from Mr. Ebo, these weapons must be relegated to history. We must collectively ensure that perpetrators of these horrific attacks are held accountable. This means justice for the victims, but also prevention of future attacks. To conclude, Mr. President, we reaffirm our full support for the OPCW and its technical teams who implement their mandate independently and in accordance with international standards. Their professionality and impartiality should be recognized by all, especially within this Council. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Malta for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Ecuador.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given that this is the first time that I'm taking the floor this month, I'd like to begin by congratulating you for assuming the presidency this month and to thank Sierra Leone for their sterling work at steering the work of the Council last month. Mr. President, my delegation is grateful for the briefing of Mr. Adejobi Ebo, Director and Deputy to the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs. Ecuador recognizes the efforts of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and its technical teams to implement the mandate of the Convention on Chemical Weapons, the relevant resolutions of the Security Council, in particular Resolution 2118. I once again urge the Syrian authorities to fully cooperate with the OPCW's technical teams and to provide the information necessary to swiftly clarify all outstanding issues. This action is essential not only for accountability, but also for international peace and security. Colleagues, Ecuador reaffirms its staunch commitment to the full implementation of the provisions of the Convention on Chemical Weapons. I reiterate my country's condemnation in the strongest terms of the use of chemical weapons by any actor and under any circumstances. It is of paramount importance that this Security Council remain united to guarantee that there is no impunity for those responsible for the use of these reprehensible weapons. To conclude, my delegation once again reaffirms its support for the impartial, objective, and independent work of the OPCW. We underscore the need to continue strengthening international cooperation to guarantee the total and verifiable elimination of chemical weapons throughout the world. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Ecuador for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of France.
Mr. President, I wish to thank Mr. Ebu for his briefing. A few days ago, this Council received the 129th monthly report of the Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons on the elimination of the Syrian program. Over the years, the OPCW teams tasked with assessing the declaration of the Syrian authorities on the chemical weapons program have conducted 27 cycles of consultations. These have included technical meetings, interviews, and visits to manufacturing sites. Despite tireless efforts on the part of OPCW teams and in spite of their professionalism, light has still not been shed on the status of the Syrian chemical program. The responsibility for that fact falls squarely on the shoulders of the Syrian regime. The 129th report of the Director General concludes yet again that the declaration from the Syrian authorities cannot be considered as precise and complete. New serious grounds for concern continue to emerge. Today, Syrian authorities have still not been able to explain the presence of chemical agents in samples collected from 2 sites in September 2020 and April 2023. That could indicate the existence of undeclared chemical weapons production activities. Question marks regarding these agents have now joined the long list of outstanding issues regarding the declaration made by the Syrian authorities. We note the intention of the OPCW to shortly deploy a team in Syria to conduct a 28th cycle of consultations, and we hope that that deployment will make it possible to move towards resolving the aforementioned outstanding issues. We urge Syria to finally cooperate fully with the OPCW to resolve all remaining queries. Syria must uphold its obligations pursuant to the CWC. This is the condition attached to Syria's recovering its rights and privileges as a state party to that convention. The possession and use of chemical weapons constitute threats to international peace and security. The Syrian regime has deliberately used these inhumane weapons against its own people. Until such time as guarantees are provided regarding the elimination of the Syrian program, the Security Council will remain actively seized of this issue. All use of chemical weapons by anyone and under any circumstances is unacceptable. We cannot and do not forget the threat linked to chemical terrorism. That was a threat recalled by the 4th report of the investigation and identification team of the OPCW, which attached responsibility for the attack perpetrated in Maraya in 2015 to Daesh. France remains fully committed with its partners to supporting the OPCW to enforce the prohibition of chemical weapons and to fight against impunity where their use is concerned.
I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Slovenia. I would like to thank Director Ebo for his informative briefing. Let me begin by stressing Slovenia's unwavering condemnation of any use of chemical weapons anywhere and by anyone, be it a state or non-state actor. Chemical weapons are a threat to international peace and security, and as a result of the extent and consequences of their use in Syria, we firmly believe that the Security Council must remain actively seized of the matter. Slovenia appreciates the regular reporting by the Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. We underline that the efforts of the organization and its experts are fundamental to ensure Syria's full compliance with the obligation deriving from the Chemical Weapons Convention, as well as to identify and hold accountable those responsible for chemical weapons use in Syria. We note with concern the recent emergence of two new outstanding issues, as Syria failed to sufficiently explain traces of undeclared chemical warfare agents. This might suggest undeclared full-scale development and production of chemical weapons at two sites. This situation deepens our concerns about the accuracy and completeness of Syrian authorities' declarations regarding the chemical weapons program and stockpiles. We call on Syria to provide technically credible explanations to the outstanding issues, comply with its obligations under the Convention, fully implement relevant Security Council resolutions, and cooperate with the OPCW in good faith. Slovenia remains determined to ensure strict observance of the prohibition of chemical weapons and to serve justice to the victims of these inhumane weapons by ensuring accountability of those responsible for chemical attacks in Syria and elsewhere. There must be no impunity for such crime. We continue to believe only a multilateral approach with the Chemical Weapons Convention and the OPCW at its center can pave the way to our ultimate goal, a world without chemical weapons. I resume the functions as President of the Council. I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I congratulate you on assuming the presidency of the Council for this month, and I wish you all success in steering our works during this month. I also thank the permanent delegation of Sierra Leone for their efforts in managing the work of our Council last month. Mr. President, my country, Syria, reiterates its condemnation of the use of chemical weapons at any time, in any place, by anyone, and under any circumstances. It affirms its commitment to cooperate with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, which was demonstrated during the past period as follows. First, the Syrian National Authority submitted 3 monthly reports covering the activities carried out in Syria during the last 3 months, the last of which was its monthly report number 129, dated August 15. Second, the Syrian National Authority facilitated holding the 27th round of consultations of the DAT in May of this year, and provided all facilities for the success of the DAT's mission. It also submitted all the required documents and information. While the DAT took 2 months to evaluate those information, the Syrian National Authority was given only 3 days to submit its comments on those evaluations, which is, of course, insufficient. Third, the Syrian National Authority welcomed the holding of the 28th round of consultations between the experts of the Syrian National Authority and the DAT after the 10th of September, according to dates that suit both parties. Fourthly, the Syrian National Authority agreed to extend the tripartite agreement between the Syrian Arab Republic, the Technical Secretariat of the OPCW, and UNOPS for an additional 6 months in order to facilitate the tasks and activities of the OPCW in Syria. Mr. President, Syria's cooperation with the OPCW is met with the organization's technical secretariat's insistence on politicizing this file instead of adhering to the principles of professionalism, neutrality, and credibility. The monthly reports of the OPCW's Director General continue to promote the same false allegations and accusations that hostile Western countries make against Syria, and which my country categorically and completely rejects. We have heard a while ago the briefing of Mr. Ibo, representative of the Secretariat. Unfortunately, his briefing today gave the Security Council technical details that should be part of the bilateral cooperation between the Syrian government and the OPCW, and should fall in the frame of the work of the organization in The Hague. The representative of the Secretariat, unfortunately, gave us details of a routine daily consultations concerning possible visits this month to Syria. Leading to more politicization and serving the agendas of countries that want to harm the Syrian cooperation with the OPCW. I mentioned a while ago that Syria welcomed the convening of the 28th round of consultations between the Syrian National Authority and the DAT after the 10th of September. And it is not up to the Secretariat to discuss whether this meeting should be held before the Summit for the Future and before the traveling of the governmental delegation to the high-level week and in New York. And all these technical details that do not serve us and only lead to further politicization. Mr. President, Syria renews its demand that the Technical Secretariat of the OPCW and Western countries that have been politicizing this file and using it as a tool of pressure, not to preempt the ongoing consultations between the Syrian National Authority and the DAT, and not to refer to so-called new outstanding issues before allowing time for their discussion between the two sides. We also call for stopping to level false accusations and refrain from disrupting the existing cooperation between Syria and the organization. My country expresses regret over what was stated in the last report, in which the Technical Secretariat jumped to conclusions regarding issues that are still under technical assessment and which require further consultation between the two sides. This serves the hostile positions of Western permanent member states in this council against my country. The letter of the Berlin Group 21, dated 18 July 2024, and circulated to all state parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention, adds further evidence of what we have repeatedly warned against regarding the grave shortcomings in the work of the Technical Secretariat. What is stated in that letter deserves the Council's attention, especially since this group includes UN and academic figures, scientists, and experts in relevant fields. In this letter, the group made clear the extent of the risks to which the OPCW is being exposed as a result of the politicization of its work, which is consistent with what was stated in the report prepared by two members of the European Parliament last year, entitled The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and the Chemical Weapons Convention, The Way Forward, which presents proposals to restore the credibility of the organization by ensuring its full return to work within the framework of the Chemical Weapons Convention, and calls on the administration of the OPCW to address the issues raised by the organization's former experts, including Ian Henderson and Brendan Wallen. Mr. President, on the 20th anniversary of the adoption of Security Council Resolution 1540, which aims at preventing non-state actors from acquiring weapons of mass destruction, their production equipment, and means of delivery, including chemical weapons, we recall that my country has been providing the Security Council Committee established pursuant to that resolution and the UN Secretariat with information about terrorist organizations' possession and use of chemical materials as weapons against civilians and against the Syrian armed forces, and the fabrication of chemical incidents in Syria. However, these information have been ignored and obscured by Western countries who are busy fabricating lies and accusations against the Syrian government for known purposes. My delegation reiterates the dangers of the possession by terrorist groups of chemical weapons. My delegation stresses the need to enhance international cooperation to address this serious threat to international peace and security. My country calls for putting an end to the politicization of the work of the OPCW and correcting its working methods in a way that restores the OPCW's professionalism and credibility and preserves the technical nature of this file, and that leads to positive results that contribute to its definite closure. Mr. President, the representative of the US administration mentioned the yearly anniversary of the US Security Council resolution, and some mentioned the yearly commemoration of a presumed incident in the neighborhood of Damascus in 2013. We would have hoped for the US representative to remind us as well that his country in August 1945 has used nuclear weapons in Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we would have wished him to mention the hundreds and thousands of victims, including men, women, children, and elderly, who were killed not for a reason, but for the sole reason that the US administration wanted to show its clout and might, as it did later on in other countries that it invaded and occupied, looting their resources and killing their people. and as it is doing currently, along with its allies, by supporting Israel to destroy Gaza and kills tens of thousands of civilians. Imagine that the US ambassador in Japan and other ambassadors have boycotted the yearly commemoration to celebrate the victims of the nuclear bomb in protest that the representative of Israel was not invited to take part in that commemoration. This reflects their policies and their alliances. It reflects their position towards disarmament. Syria, before this council, and when we were members of the council in 2003, has submitted a project to establish a free zone in the Middle East, a zone free of all forms of weapons, chemical, nuclear, and biological. And our proposal was thwarted by the United States, which is still ignoring the arsenal of Israel, which includes prohibited weapons and which continues to level accusations against my country, and which is talking about timelines a week from here, a month from there, although the same United States was late, more than 20 years late, to eliminate its own chemical weapons arsenal. Although there was no terrorist presence on its territories and there was no foreign occupation on its territories, and although it was never subjected to illegitimate UCMs, and although it was not subjected to pressure by permanent members, and it was not affected by the politicization of this file. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for their statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Mr. President, I would like to begin by congratulating Slovenia for assuming the presidency of the Security Council this month. We acknowledge Sierra Leone for its successful conclusion of the presidency in August. We also welcome the presence of Mr. Ebo, Director and Deputy to the UN High Representative for Disarmament Affairs at today's briefing. Mr. President, as a committed party to the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Syrian Arab Republic continues to uphold its commitment under the convention and cooperate closely with OPCW. We acknowledge the vital importance of efforts by the Syrian government in implementing its obligation under the convention. We welcome the submission by the Syria in its monthly report, that the latest of which covers the relevant activities that were carried out on the territory of the Syrian Arab Republic during the past 3 months. We positively noted Syria's continued cooperation and provided all facilities to hold the 27th round of consultation between the Declaration Assessment Team and the Syrian National Authority. The Syrian National Authority also welcomed the holding of the 28th round of this consultation. As such, the Syrian National Authority agreed to extend the tripartite agreement between the Syrian Arab Republic, the Technical Secretariat of the OPCW, and United Nations Office for Project Service for an additional 6 months to facilitate the task and activities of OPCW in Syria. Mr. President, we share these views that OPCW must be able to perform its duties in an impartial, professional, and objective manner to establish facts and develop evidence-based conclusion. It is in the interest of the Convention, the OPCW, the rule of law, and the maintenance of international peace and security. We reiterate our full support for the Chemical Weapons Convention and the promotion of its authority. We also call for its full, effective, and non-discriminatory implementation of Convention. Mr. President, unfortunately, what we continue to witness is this Council and the OPCW in recent years is certain of member states systematically abusing the process of advanced politically motivated agenda at any cost. By citing a series of unsubstantiated allegations, they are using these bodies against the Syrian government, disregarding the progress that country has made in fulfilling its obligation. We share the concerns that repeated statements in today's meeting underscore the inefficiency of holding council sessions on this matter, given the clear lack of substantial progress or significant developments. This trend, which has undermined the Convention authority and the OPCW's credibility, must stop. In this regard, we take note the letter dated 18 July 2024 from the Berlin Group 21, including UN and academic experts, was circulated to all the states parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Security Council, and the UN Secretary General. This letter provides further evidence of serious shortcoming in this OPCW technical secretariat, highlighting the risk of politicization. We support the continued constructive dialogue between Syria and the OPCW to address any remaining issue and bring the file to a final and conclusive resolution. This approach